Hello all. I can admit that I really don't know where I'm going with this live because I learned of this term voluntary homelessness last night, and it's really been. I honestly could not sleep because just processing what the fuck that could be. I get it, and I'm gonna read you some things. It came to my attention um, because of a tweet that let me bring up um, a tweet that and I do not want to mispronounce her name. Um, Give me a second, but I know I'm going to mispronounce her name, so I apologize for mispronouncing your name. Um, and I hate to do this. That's why I get because I know how important people's names are. So I'm just gonna spell her name so I do not mispronounce, and I think that's very rude. It's Radhika, and her last name is Morabia. Um, she wrote a tweet yesterday that brought to my attention a thing called voluntary homelessness that Austen Allred of co-founder of Lambda School, um, co-founder of Lambda School wrote an article back in November 3rd, 2013, and it's called Voluntary Homelessness in Silicon Valley. And and I really, when I first saw her tweets, I was like, okay, this is absurd, right? This is absurd. Um, and then I couldn't stop thinking about how, because it's been happening a lot lately, how often privileged individuals benefit from um staking a claim in oppression, um staking a um finding it cool or something to be a part of the poor, any marginalized group. I'm just trying to, I don't understand the psychology of this at all. um and so I'm just gonna, again, I'm working this out in my head because I find it utterly disgusting. Actually, I do find it disgusting. So I'm just gonna read you some things, and then I'm just gonna try to unpack. So the article, as I said, it's a Medium article, and I'll drop it in the below. And it's voluntary homelessness in Silicon Valley. And I'm going to read you the first parts of this, and then I'm going to read you some thing that came from Reddit, and then I'm just going to, I guess, talk through this or something. So he says, I'm writing this post from the trunk of my 2002 Honda Civic, the place that I will call my home for the next few months, as my co-founder and I finished building a publicly launching Grasswire. While the adventure has just begun, I honestly feel like this type of homeless lifestyle while building a company is not only possible but sustainable. Okay, and then from a Reddit thread, it says, I don't know, he's responding to somebody, but it says, nailed it. I lived in the a Honda Civic this summer as I was getting a startup off the ground. And then he puts the link to it. And I had a dozen people offer to let me stay at their place or crash on their couch rent free. I was certainly grateful for their hospitality. However, self sufficiency, even if it comes to the extent of living in a car and scalping soccer tickets for a living, feels completely different than being a welfare case. Does that sound like anybody's fucking empathetic to or sympathetic? Y'all understand how I feel about empathy, but sympathetic to the plight of. Let me finish this. As a result, I wasn't living in my car for lack of other options, but rather out of a belief that I could create something by sheer willpower, and that I was going to do that come hell or high water. My homelessness was a matter of seeking something greater than myself, but not being lost but not being lost to poverty. Sure, it wasn't convenient to live in a car. It made some parts of my life a little more complex. But when you read, but you can read some Thoreau, realize how free you are, and work on what you love and believe in every minute of every day. That's powerful, whether it's a startup or getting back on your feet. So I'm just gonna so let me start by saying economic hardship and mental illness, which are the largest proportion of people. I didn't know there was this I call it poverty chic. That's what I put here. I didn't know there was this subsect of individuals who um voluntarily became homeless. So, economic hardship and mental illness, which is the great majority of people who are actual homeless, which means they don't have these options that this young man talks about, is not poverty chic. Hard, no. Um, Homelessness, as seen through the lens of an adventure. And so then these from the article, I pulled out two quotes. Much more than money, what fuels me is an obsession for minimalism. This is also a guy who's recently been tweeting a lot about, oh, he's trying to be a billionaire and da da da. So what happened to the minimalism there? I would think that 7 years later, you would have gone. Okay. Let me do this last quote. I have had my share of part-time kid college kid grunt work kinds of jobs, the kind of sit at a computer and enter data until your eyeballs bleed, kind of job that make you generally miserable. Okay, most kids don't have the advantage of sitting in front of a computer. That's not their college kid grunt work kind of jobs. They're working fast food, they're working as servers, they're doing jobs that really require them to be on their feet, them to be moving things is really physical. There's a small set of group young people who get the privilege of sitting in front of a computer, whether they like it or not. I mean that does not matter. But let's not paint this individual as okay. So my problem with all of this is, it speaks to why I have a problem with his business model, or the business model of ISAs, because that's what they are. For someone who called himself voluntarily homeless, he's created a business model to prey on those individuals who are very much near economic hardship. Um, and if they default on their loans, could literally be homeless, not because it's a lifestyle choice, but because they've lost their housing, they lost everything else. They don't have the support systems of people saying you can live on my couch. um, Many of them don't even have cars. So when I look at this, I as an educator, I could say, okay, that was 7 years ago. I could chalk that up to a young privileged dude who, through his limited perspective, has no fucking clue of what or how people live in the real world. Um, and then though I fast forward to now and I see how he engages in what he's built, and I don't see any change. And he ends the blog post he wrote by saying, I'm not sure if it's okay to recommend homelessness, but I recommend it. um, and then he has a call. If anyone reading this happens to be a entrepreneur in the valley, I'd love to meet as many as you as I can. So it's just like this. I don't want to call it a cult. There's this mindset that's in tech that these very privileged individuals. It's a part of, and I wrote this yesterday. It's a part of the narrative of them wanting to pull themselves up by their bootstraps, or want to be able to tell a story of a rags to riches story when they have no rags to riches story, and that's okay. I don't understand why being poor is the because people in poverty wants to get the fuck out of poverty. But you have these privileged, oftentimes white dudes in tech, continually telling these narratives, these false narratives of how they pulled themselves up by their bootstraps. Dude, if your fucking college job, grunt job, was working at a computer, you have no idea what poverty is like. You don't. I worked in Title I schools where parents of my students worked in Popeyes, McDonald's, worked at the local laundromat. I mean, were so transient in my community because every 3 months they had to leave. They went throughout the whole county at different schools because every 3 months they had to leave. And why? Because they would sign the lease. All they had was that lease money. It takes 3 months to evict them. They knew they were going to be homeless again, but they were trying to hold. Oh, this is just disgusting, Austen. I need you to understand why you are part of the problem and why people like you are part of the problem. Please, all you have as expertise is your lived experience. And what you did was not voluntary homelessness. You chose to live in a car to save money and to focus on your business. That's the narrative you need to tell. Let's not denigrate and let's not make your situation as equal to those individuals who literally have no fucking place to go, have no support system, have nothing, don't even have bootstraps to pull themselves up by. Please, and anybody who's listening to this, please stop promoting that narrative. I would never promote that narrative. If after my father passed away is when I came into the tech space, he left me a house. He left me a car. Had he not left me a house and a car, I have relatives all around me where I can live. I would never, and I've said this time and time again, even as a Black woman living in South, I would never be homeless as long as I will always have food and a place to live, as long as I have a family member still alive. I would never say I'm homeless. And yet I still don't have the same amount of privilege. My hard work doesn't have the same results as Austen's and these other individuals at Y Combinator and all these other, because people don't listen to me. People underestimate people like me. So we still don't have the privilege you have, and yet we will not say that we're homeless. This is the problem. We continue to build products and services from people with this kind of perspective. This is harmful. Because if you think this is homeless, then you are okay with saying the narrative that the other individuals haven't worked hard enough not to be homeless. So again, this is why we need to dismantle white supremacy. This is why we need to build products and services that prioritize the most vulnerable. And we need to think about the risk management issues of lack of inclusion. So I don't even know if I said I just find this mentality that is so firmly rooted in tech to be so disgusting because it exploits the very people who are the most vulnerable and who have no choices. So have a wonderful day. Goodbye.